Chapter 1. The bell above my shop door chimed softly as I stepped inside, the familiar sound echoing through the quiet morning. Pale sunlight filtered through the front windows, catching on the glass vases and scattering little flecks of gold across the wooden counters. The air smelled like lavender, damp soil, and the faint sweetness of yesterday's roses. The kind of scent that always made me feel grounded, safe, at home. I set my bag down, shrugged off my coat, and reached for the small lamp near the register. Its warm amber glow spread slowly across the shop, softening the shadows and illuminating the rows of flowers waiting to be arranged. That was when I saw it. Right in the center of my workbench lay a single blossom I had never seen before, not in my shop, not in any catalogue, not in any greenhouse. Its petals glowed from within, a deep ember red that pulsed gently, like the slow, steady rhythm of a heartbeat. Wisps of warm light curled off the edges, rising and fading like sparks drifting from a fire. The glow reflected off the metal tools beside it, casting flickering patterns across the tabletop. I froze. I hadn't put it there. No one else had a key. And nothing in the shop was disturbed. Not a single vase out of place, not a leaf on the floor. I stepped closer, drawn in despite the unease prickling at the back of my neck. The warmth coming off the blossom brushed against my skin before I even touched it, like standing near a fireplace on a cold night. I reached out, half expecting to burn myself. But when my fingertips brushed the petals, the warmth that met my skin was soft and comforting, like holding a mug of tea between my palms, or slipping into a sun-warmed blanket. It didn't scorch, it didn't sting, it felt gentle, alive. A tiny breath escaped me. "What are you?" The blossom didn't answer, of course, but the glow brightened, as if acknowledging the question. I glanced around the shop again, searching for any sign of how it got there. Nothing. No footprints, no open windows, no overturned pots, just this impossible flower resting on my workbench like it belonged there. A flutter of nerves tightened in my chest. Someone had left this for me. Someone who could get inside without being seen. Someone who knew exactly where I'd find it. I stepped outside for air, letting the cool morning breeze wash over me. The sky was pale and soft, the kind of early light that made everything feel a little dreamlike. I took a slow breath, and nearly walked straight into someone. A man stood on the sidewalk, tall and still, as if he'd been waiting for me to appear. His eyes caught the morning light first. A deep, molten amber that seemed to glow from within, warm and intense and strangely familiar. They reminded me of the blossom still pulsing on my workbench. "Sorry," he murmured, stepping back. His voice was low and warm, like a crackling fire on a winter night. "It's okay," I said, steadying myself with a hand on the doorframe. "I didn't see you." He glanced past me into the shop, his gaze lingering for a moment too long. Something flickered across his expression. Recognition, maybe, or worry, before he masked it with a polite smile. "Beautiful morning," he said softly. "It is," I replied, though my heart was still thudding from the surprise. "Are you looking for something?" His eyes met mine again, and for a moment I felt heat bloom beneath my skin, subtle but unmistakable. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then hesitated. "No," he said finally, "just passing by." But the way he said it didn't feel casual. It felt like a lie wrapped in warmth. Before I could ask anything else, he dipped his head in a quiet farewell and walked away, his steps quick, almost too quick, as if he needed to put distance between us. I watched him go, a strange pull tightening in my chest. Then I turned back toward the shop, the ember-bright blossom glowing softly inside, and I knew, without understanding how, that the two were connected, and that whatever had begun this morning was only the start. Chapter 2. The next morning, I arrived at the shop before sunrise, the sky still a muted blue-gray, the air cool enough to make my breath fog. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and reached automatically for the lamp near the register. But even before the warm glow filled the room, I saw it. Another blossom. This one rested in the exact same spot as yesterday's, centered neatly on the workbench as if placed with intention. But it wasn't identical. The petals were brighter, the ember red, deepening into a molten gold near the center. Wisps of light curled upward in slow spirals, dissolving into the air like smoke that didn't quite know how to behave. I felt a shiver run through me, though the room was warm. I approached slowly, my footsteps soft on the wooden floor. The blossom pulsed again, that same gentle heartbeat rhythm, and I felt the warmth reach me before I even touched it. I hesitated, then brushed my fingertips along the petals. The warmth spread instantly through my hand, up my arm, settling in my chest like a quiet, steady flame. It wasn't just comforting, it felt familiar, like something inside me recognized it. I swallowed, my pulse quickening. Someone had left this for me. Someone who could enter without disturbing a single thing. Someone who wanted me to find it. I lifted the blossom carefully, cradling it in both hands. The glow brightened, casting soft amber light across my palms. When I held it close, I could swear I heard a faint hum, not a sound exactly, more like a vibration, a presence. I set it gently into a small glass bowl, and placed it beside yesterday's blossom, which still glowed faintly. Together, they looked like twin embers waiting to ignite. As I arranged the morning deliveries, customers trickled in, regulars who always came early for fresh bouquets. A few paused near the counter, commenting on the warmth in the shop. "It feels like you've got a heater running somewhere," one woman said, rubbing her hands together. I smiled politely, though my heart thudded. Just the morning sun, I guess. But the sun wasn't even up yet. When the last customer left, I leaned against the counter and exhaled slowly. The blossoms glowed softly beside me, their warmth brushing against my skin like a quiet reassurance. I didn't know who was leaving them, but I knew with a certainty that made my stomach flutter that it wasn't random. I stepped outside to sweep the front walkway, letting the cool air clear my thoughts. The street was quiet, the early morning stillness wrapping around the town like a soft blanket. And then I saw him. The man from yesterday. He stood across the street, hands in his pockets, watching the sky as if waiting for something. When he turned his head and saw me, his eyes caught the light again. That deep, molten amber that made my breath hitch. He hesitated, then crossed the street slowly, almost reluctantly, as though fighting an invisible pull. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm enough to melt frost. "Morning," I replied, gripping the broom handle a little too tightly. "You're out early." "So are you." His gaze flicked toward the shop windows, lingering for a moment before returning to me. "Long day ahead." "Always," I said with a small laugh. "Flowers don't arrange themselves." His lips curved into a faint smile, but something in his expression tightened. A flicker of worry, or maybe guilt. It passed quickly, replaced by a softness that made my chest warm. "I like your shop," he said quietly. "It feels warm." Warm, the same word the customers used, the same warmth that radiated from the blossoms. I swallowed. "Thank you." I tried to make it welcoming. He nodded, but his gaze drifted again toward the workbench inside, as if he could see straight through the walls. His eyes softened, almost tender. Before I could ask anything, his name, why he kept appearing, why his presence made the blossoms glow brighter, he stepped back. "I should go," he murmured. "Wait." The word slipped out before I could stop it. He paused, his amber eyes meeting mine with a heat that made my breath catch. For a moment, I thought he might say something important, something true. But instead he offered a small, almost pained smile. "Have a good day," he said softly. Then he turned and walked away, his steps quick, almost urgent, as if staying near me was dangerous. I watched him disappear around the corner, my heart thudding in a rhythm that matched the blossoms' glow. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that he was connected to them. To the warmth, to the magic, to me. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a coincidence. It was the beginning. Chapter 3. The shop was quiet that afternoon, the kind of gentle lull that always settled in after the morning rush. Sunlight streamed through the front windows in long, warm beams, catching on the petals of the bouquets I'd arranged earlier. The two fiery blossoms rested in their glass bowls on the workbench, glowing softly like tiny lanterns. I kept glancing at them, unable to stop myself. They pulsed faintly, as if breathing, as if waiting. I was trimming a bundle of eucalyptus when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, expecting one of my regulars, someone picking up a bouquet for a birthday or an anniversary. But it was him. The man from the sidewalk. The one with the ember-colored eyes. He stepped inside slowly, almost cautiously, as though crossing some invisible threshold. The sunlight caught in his hair, turning the dark strands warm and coppery. He wore a simple jacket, hands tucked into the pockets, shoulders slightly tense, like he wasn't sure he should be here. My breath caught before I could stop it. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual, even though my pulse had leapt into my throat. "Hi," he echoed, his voice soft and warm, curling around the quiet space like a gentle flame. He glanced around the shop, taking in the rows of flowers, the hanging plants, the soft light. "It's beautiful in here, thank you." I set the eucalyptus down, wiping my hands on my apron. "Can I help you find something?" He hesitated. A tiny pause, barely noticeable, but enough to make my heart flutter. "I'm just looking," he said. "I've walked by a few times, thought I'd finally come in." I nodded, though something in his tone made me think he'd been debating this for a while. He moved slowly through the shop, trailing his fingers near the petals of a bouquet without touching them. Wherever he stood, the air felt warmer, not uncomfortably so, just cozy, like standing near a fireplace. I tried to focus on straightening a display, but my eyes kept drifting back to him. There was something about the way he moved, careful, deliberate, almost reverent, that made the space feel different, charged, alive. He paused near the workbench. My heart lurched. The blossoms were right there, glowing softly in their bowls. He didn't touch them, but he looked at them with an expression I couldn't decipher, something like longing, mixed with worry, mixed with something deeper, something that made my chest tighten. "They're unusual," I said quietly, stepping closer. "I've never seen anything like them." He swallowed, his jaw tightening for a moment. "No," he said softly. "You wouldn't have." I frowned. "Do you know what they are?" His eyes flicked to mine, and for a heartbeat I felt heat bloom beneath my skin, warm and startling. He looked away quickly, as if afraid he'd revealed too much. "They're beautiful," he said instead. "They suit you." The words landed with a surprising weight, sending a flutter through my stomach. I opened my mouth to ask more, about the flowers, about him, about why he kept appearing. But he reached for a small bouquet of wildflowers on the counter. "I'll take these," he said, his voice a little too quick. I wrapped them for him, my hands steady, even though my heart wasn't. When I handed the bouquet over, our fingers brushed, just a whisper of contact, and a warm rush spread up my arm, soft and startling. He felt it too. I saw it in the way his breath hitched, the way his eyes widened just slightly. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice lower now, almost rough. "You're welcome," I said, though the words felt too small for the moment. He lingered for a second, one heartbeat, two, then stepped back, the warmth of his presence fading with each step. As he reached the door, he paused, his hand resting on the frame. He looked back at me, his amber eyes glowing faintly in the afternoon light. "Take care," he said softly. Then he left, the bell chiming behind him. I stood there for a long moment, the bouquet paper still warm where his fingers had touched it. The blossoms on the workbench pulsed gently, their glow brightening as if responding to something inside me. Something shifting. Something awakening. And I knew, with a certainty that made my heart race, that he was connected to them. To the warmth. To the magic. To me. Whatever he was hiding, whatever he was afraid of, it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, but I wanted to be. 4. The shop felt different the next morning. Warmer, softer, almost humming with a quiet energy I couldn't quite name. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and immediately felt it. A gentle wave of heat brushing against my skin, like someone had lit a candle in every corner. And there it was. A third blossom. It rested in the same place as the others, but this one glowed brighter than both combined. The petals were a deep, molten gold at the center, fading into a soft ember red at the edges. Tiny sparks drifted upward, dissolving into the air before they reached the ceiling. I approached slowly, my heart thudding in a rhythm that felt too synchronized with the flower's pulse. When I touched it, warmth spread through me instantly, not just in my hand but in my chest, my stomach, the space behind my ribs. It felt like the blossom recognized me, like it was responding to something inside me. I lifted it gently and placed it beside the others. Together the three blossoms glowed like a small constellation, their light flickering across the workbench in soft waves. I should have been afraid. I should have been calling someone, anyone, to help me figure out what was happening. But instead, I felt calm, curious, drawn in. As I arranged the morning bouquets, I kept glancing at the blossoms. Every time I thought of him, the ember-eyed stranger, the glow brightened. When I tried to focus on something else, the light dimmed. It was impossible. It was undeniable. By mid-morning, I gave up pretending I wasn't watching them. I pulled out a small notebook from beneath the counter, the one I usually used for inventory, and began jotting down observations. Blossom number 1. Steady glow, warm pulses softly. Blossom number 2. Brighter, reacts to touch, hums faintly. Blossom number 3, strongest glow, reacts to thoughts. I paused, tapping the pen against my lip. All 3 brighten when I think of him. The moment I wrote the words, the blossoms flared. A soft, golden burst of light that washed across the workbench and warmed my cheeks. I stared at them, my breath catching. Okay, I whispered. That's new. The bell above the door chimed. I jumped, snapping the notebook shut and sliding it under a stack of ribbon spools. I turned toward the entrance, trying to look casual, composed, not like I'd just been caught talking to magical flowers. And there he was. He stepped inside slowly, the same careful, deliberate way he had the day before. His presence warmed the air instantly, like someone had opened a door to a sunlit room. His eyes, those deep, molten amber eyes, flicked toward me, then toward the workbench. The blossoms pulsed, he noticed. His jaw tightened, just slightly, before he forced a small smile. Hi, I said, my voice softer than I intended. He moved closer, stopping near a display of lilies. His fingers hovered above the petals, not quite touching them. I watched the way the light caught on his skin. Warm, golden, almost glowing. You're here early, I said, trying to sound casual. He nodded. I was nearby, watching, waiting. The thought sent a flutter through my stomach. He glanced toward the workbench again, and the blossoms brightened in response. His expression shifted. A flicker of something like longing, or regret, or both. I stepped closer. Do you like them? He swallowed. They're beautiful. You said that yesterday, I said gently. But you looked at them like you knew something. His eyes met mine, and for a moment the warmth in them was overwhelming, like standing too close to a fire, but not wanting to step back. I shouldn't, he murmured. Shouldn't what? He shook his head, looking away. I shouldn't be here. The words hit me harder than I expected. Why not? He hesitated, a long, heavy pause, then whispered. Because I'm not good at staying away. My breath caught. Before I could respond, he stepped back, putting distance between us. The blossoms dimmed instantly, as if reacting to his retreat. I should go, he said again, but his voice was softer this time. Sadder. I took a small step forward. Wait. He froze. The blossoms flared. He closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. You don't know what you're asking. I'm not asking anything, I said quietly. I just want to understand. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the warm shop light. If you understood, you'd run. But I didn't feel fear. I felt warmth. Curiosity. A pull I couldn't explain. He turned toward the door, his shoulders tense, his steps slow. Like leaving cost him something. The bell chimed as he slipped outside. And the moment he was gone, the blossoms dimmed to a soft, steady glow, as if settling into a quiet sigh. I stood there, heart pounding, the warmth of his presence still lingering in the air. Whatever he was hiding, whatever he feared, I wasn't running. Not now, not ever. Chapter 5. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blossoms glowing on my workbench, their soft pulses matching the rhythm of my heartbeat. And behind them, always behind them, were his eyes. That deep, molten amber that seemed to hold warmth and warning in equal measure. By morning I felt restless, like something inside me was shifting, stretching, waking up. When I unlocked the shop and stepped inside, the air felt warmer than usual. Not stifling, just gently heated, like someone had lit a candle in every corner. The sunlight hadn't even reached the windows yet, but the room glowed softly, as if illuminated from within. And then I saw it. A fourth blossom. This one wasn't just glowing, it was alive with light. The petals were larger, their edges flickering with tiny sparks that rose and vanished before they reached the ceiling. The center pulsed with a deep golden heat, brighter than any of the others. I approached slowly, my breath caught somewhere between awe and fear. When I reached out, the warmth brushed my skin before I even touched it. A soft, steady heat that felt like a hand resting gently against my palm. I hesitated. Then I touched it. The world shifted. A rush of heat surged up my arm, not painful but powerful, like stepping into a sunbeam after being cold for too long. My vision blurred, then sharpened, then filled with light. And suddenly, I wasn't in my shop anymore. I stood in a vast dark space, lit only by fire, swirling, rising, dancing flames that moved like living creatures. In the center of it all was a shape, a silhouette, a being made of fire and feathers and light. Wings unfurled, glowing gold and red, each feather a flicker of flame. A phoenix. Its eyes, bright, molten amber, locked onto mine. The heat around me softened, wrapping me in warmth instead of burning. The phoenix stepped forward, its form shifting, shrinking, folding inward, until the flames dimmed and a man emerged from the fire. Him. The ember-eyed stranger. He reached toward me, his hand glowing faintly, his expression a mixture of longing and fear. I gasped and stumbled back, the vision shattering like glass. I was in my shop again, my hand still resting on the blossom. The glow dimmed slowly, settling into a soft, steady pulse. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stared at the flower, my breath shaking. What was that? The bell above the door chimed. I spun around. He stood in the doorway. His chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, as if he'd been running. His eyes, those unmistakable molten eyes, locked onto mine instantly. And for the first time he didn't look away. You saw it, he whispered. My throat tightened. Saw what? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The air warmed immediately, the blossoms brightening in response. The truth, he said softly, or the beginning of it. I swallowed hard. What are you? He flinched. Not from fear, but from something like sorrow. Something I never meant for you to see. I took a step toward him, my pulse racing. But I did. His gaze dropped to my hand. The one that had touched the blossom. And now I can't hide it anymore. I waited, breath held, heart pounding. He lifted his eyes to mine, and for the first time, I saw the fire behind them. Not metaphorical, not imagined, but real. A soft glow, a flicker of flame, a truth he could no longer contain. I'm not like you, he said quietly. I never have been. The blossoms pulsed in unison, their glow rising like a held breath. And if you keep touching those flowers, he whispered, you're going to see everything. The warmth in the room deepened, wrapping around us like a living thing. And I knew, with a certainty that made my skin tingle, that whatever he was hiding, it was only a matter of time before the truth came fully into the light. 6. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The shop was quiet except for the soft hum of the blossoms behind me, their glow warming the air like a cluster of tiny suns. He stood just inside the doorway, the morning light catching on his hair, turning it a deep copper gold. His eyes, those molten, impossible eyes, held mine with a mixture of fear and something else, something tender, something that made my pulse trip over itself. I swallowed, my voice barely above a whisper. What did I see? He exhaled slowly, the sound shaky, almost pained. Something I've spent a very long time trying to hide. I took a step toward him. He didn't move, but the air around him warmed, brushing against my skin like a soft breeze from a fire. You don't have to hide from me, I said. His jaw tightened. I do. For your sake. The blossoms behind me pulsed, their light brightening as if reacting to his words. He flinched at the glow, his gaze flicking toward them with a look that was almost guilty. They're connected to you, I said softly. Aren't they? He closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging. Yes. I waited, heart pounding. When he opened his eyes again, the glow behind them was unmistakable, a flicker of flame, a spark of something ancient and powerful. My name is Kale, he said quietly. And I'm not human, not entirely. The warmth in the room deepened, wrapping around us like a living thing. I didn't step back. I didn't run. I just breathed, letting the truth settle over me like falling ash. What are you? I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. He hesitated, a long, heavy pause, then lifted his hand slowly, as if afraid I'd recoil. A faint glow shimmered beneath his skin, spreading across his palm like embers waking in a fire. I'm a phoenix, he whispered, a shifter, born of flame, bound to cycles of fire and rebirth. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place. The warmth, the blossoms, The way the air shifted around him. The vision I'd seen. I stepped closer, drawn to him like gravity. And the flowers. His expression softened, something vulnerable flickering across his face. They're pieces of my magic. Embers I can't always control. They appear when He swallowed. When I think of someone too much. My breath caught. Of me? He didn't answer with words. He didn't have to. The blossoms behind me flared in a soft golden burst, their light washing across the shop in a warm wave. Cale's eyes widened, his breath hitching as if the glow physically pulled at him. I didn't mean for you to find them, he said, voice low. I tried to stay away. But the magic kept slipping. Every time I thought of you, another blossom appeared. My heart fluttered, warm and unsteady. Why me? He looked at me then. Really looked, and the heat in his gaze made my skin tingle. Because you feel like warmth, he said softly. Like a place I've been searching for without knowing it. The words hit me like a soft, steady flame, warming me from the inside out. I reached out before I could stop myself, my hand hovering near his. Cale. He stepped back sharply, the warmth around him flaring. Don't. The word wasn't harsh. It was desperate. I don't want to hurt you, he said, voice trembling. My fire isn't always gentle, especially now. Now? I whispered. He looked away, jaw tight. I'm nearing a rebirth cycle. The flames get stronger, harder to control. I shouldn't be near you. But you are, I said softly. His eyes closed, his breath shaking. I can't seem to stay away. The blossoms pulsed again, their glow rising like a held breath. I stepped closer, slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. Cale? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not afraid of you. His eyes opened, glowing faintly. You should be. I shook my head. I'm not. For a moment the world felt suspended. The warmth, the light, the quiet space between us, holding everything still. Then he exhaled, a soft, broken sound. I don't know how to be close to someone without burning them, he said. But I want to try, with you. My heart thudded, warm and steady. I reached out again, slower this time, giving him every chance to step back. He didn't move. When my fingers brushed his, the warmth that rushed through me was gentle. Soft. Steady, like a flame learning how to be tender. Cale inhaled sharply, his eyes widening. You're not burning, he whispered. No, I said, my voice trembling with something that felt dangerously close to hope. I'm not. The blossoms behind us glowed brighter, their light filling the shop like dawn breaking. In that moment, standing in the warmth of his magic, I knew the truth. Whatever this was, whatever we were becoming, it was only just beginning. For a few days after Cale's confession, the shop felt different, warmer, quieter, lonelier. The blossoms still appeared each morning, soft, glowing embers that pulsed gently on my workbench, but their light felt unsettled. Some mornings they flared too bright, casting sharp streaks of gold across the walls. Other mornings they barely glowed at all, their warmth faint and flickering. It was as if they were mirroring him, or mirroring the space he'd left behind. Because Cale didn't come back. Not the next day, not the day after that. Not even to pass by the window the way he used to. I tried to tell myself he was giving me space, or that he was afraid, or that he was trying to protect me just like he said. But the truth settled in my chest like a quiet ache. He was pulling away, and the blossoms knew it. On the third morning, I found one that was too hot to touch. Not dangerously so, just enough to make me flinch. Its petals flickered like a candle in a draught, the glow sharp and restless. What's happening? I whispered, brushing my fingers near it without making contact. The blossom pulsed once, a soft, trembling light, as if answering in a language I couldn't understand. I spent the morning arranging bouquets, trying to distract myself, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Cale, the warmth of his hand, the glow in his eyes, the way he'd said he couldn't stay away even as he tried to. By midday, the shop felt too quiet, too warm, too full of things unsaid. I stepped outside for air, letting the cool breeze wash over me. The street was calm, sunlight spilling across the pavement in soft golden patches. I scanned the sidewalk out of habit, hoping maybe to see him standing there, but he wasn't. I sighed and turned back toward the shop. That was when I felt it, a faint warmth behind me, brushing against my back like a soft exhale. I spun around. Cale stood a few feet away, half in shadow, half in sunlight. His posture was tense, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes glowing faintly even in the daylight. My breath caught. Cale. He didn't move, didn't smile, didn't step closer. You shouldn't be out here, he said quietly. Why not? I asked, my voice softer than I intended. His jaw tightened. Because I'm not stable right now. The words hit me like a cold wind. What does that mean? He looked away, the muscles in his throat working as he swallowed. The rebirth cycle is close, too close. The fire gets unpredictable, stronger, harder to control. I took a step toward him. Then let me help. No. His voice cracked like a spark catching dry wood. You don't understand. I could hurt you. You haven't, I said gently. Not yet. The warmth around him flared. Not dangerous but sharp, like a warning. He stepped back quickly, as if afraid the heat might reach me. I shouldn't have come, he murmured. Then why did you? I asked. His eyes lifted to mine, and the answer was right there. Raw, unguarded, burning softly behind the amber glow. Because I can't stop thinking about you, he whispered. And every time I try to stay away, the fire gets worse. My heart tightened. Cale, he shook his head, cutting me off. I'm losing control. The blossoms are proof of that. They're reacting to me, to you, to everything I'm trying not to feel. I glanced toward the shop window, where the faint glow of the blossoms flickered like distant stars. They're not afraid of you, I said softly, and I'm not either. You should be, he said again, but the words sounded hollow now, like he didn't believe them anymore. I stepped closer, slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. The warmth around him softened, settling into a gentle heat that brushed against my skin like a warm breeze. Cale, I whispered, you don't have to go through this alone. His breath hitched, his eyes closing for a moment as if the words physically struck him. When he opened them again, the glow behind them was softer, sadder. I want to stay, he said, more than you know. But wanting you this much is exactly what makes it dangerous. The ache in my chest deepened. Then let me decide what's dangerous. He looked at me for a long, quiet moment. A moment filled with warmth and longing and fear all tangled together. Then he stepped back. I can't, he whispered. Not yet. And before I could reach for him, before I could say anything else, he turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner like a fading ember carried off by the wind. The blossoms inside the shop dimmed instantly, their glow settling into a soft, mournful flicker. And I stood there on the sidewalk, the warmth of his presence fading from the air, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't pulling away because he didn't care. Pulling away because he cared too much. And that terrified him. The blossoms warned me before anything else did. I walked into the shop just after dawn, expecting the usual soft glow, the gentle warmth that had become strangely comforting, but the moment I stepped inside, a wave of heat hit me, sharp, uneven, almost frantic. The air shimmered, the temperature rising and falling in quick, unsettling pulses. And then I saw them. The blossoms weren't glowing, they were burning. Not with flames, not exactly, but with a fierce, unstable light that flickered violently across the workbench. Their petals curled inward and then flared outward again, as if caught in a storm of their own making. Sparks drifted upward, dissolving before they reached the ceiling. My breath caught. Cale, something was wrong, terribly wrong. I reached for the nearest blossom, but the heat radiating from it made me pull back with a gasp. It wasn't gentle warmth anymore, it was fire trying to hold itself together. I grabbed my coat and rushed outside, the cold morning air hitting me like a shock. The street was quiet, the sky pale and washed with early light. I scanned the sidewalk, my heart pounding. He wasn't there. But the warmth was. A faint trail of heat brushed against my skin, drifting down the street like a whisper. I followed it, my steps quickening as the air grew warmer, thicker, charged with something electric. By the time I reached the edge of the small park near the shop, the warmth had become a steady, pulsing heat. The trees glowed faintly, their leaves shimmering with reflected light. And then I saw him. Kale stood in the center of the clearing, his back to me, his body trembling. Flames flickered beneath his skin, not metaphorical, not imagined, but real, visible, rising and falling in waves. His hands glowed like molten metal, and the air around him rippled with heat. "Kale!" I called out. He flinched, but didn't turn around. "Go back." His voice was rough, strained, like he was fighting to hold it together. I took a step forward. "No, please," he said louder this time. "I can't control it. I don't want you near me." The heat intensified, swirling around him in a chaotic halo. Sparks drifted from his shoulders, dissolving before they touched the ground. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, each exhale glowing faintly in the air. He was unraveling. "Kale," I said softly, stepping closer, "look at me." He shook his head violently. "I can't. If I see you, I'll lose the last bit of control I have." "You're already losing it," I whispered. A harsh, broken sound escaped him. Half laugh, half sob. "Exactly." The flames beneath his skin flared, rising up his arms, his neck, his jaw. His silhouette blurred, shifting between human and something else. Something winged, something burning, something ancient. I took another step. The heat hit me like a wave, but I didn't stop. "Don't," he begged, his voice cracking. "I'll hurt you." "You won't." "You don't know that." "I do." He finally turned. And the sight stole my breath. His eyes blazed, not glowing softly like before, but burning with raw, uncontrolled fire. Flames flickered along his cheekbones, his hair lifting in a heat-driven breeze. His entire body shimmered with light, like he was moments away from bursting into flame. He looked terrified. "Please," he whispered, "don't come any closer." But I did. One step, then another, then another. The heat wrapped around me, fierce and wild, but it didn't burn. It felt like standing in the heart of a bonfire. Overwhelming, powerful, but somehow safe. "Kale," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. "You're not alone." He shook his head, tears of molten gold gathering at the corners of his eyes. "I don't want you to see me like this. I want to see all of you." The flames surged, rising in a brilliant flare that lit the entire clearing. He cried out, dropping to his knees as the fire roared around him. I didn't hesitate. I stepped into the flames. The heat enveloped me instantly, wrapping around my body like a living thing. But it didn't hurt. It didn't scorch. It felt like stepping into sunlight. Intense, overwhelming but warm, familiar, right. Kale looked up at me, shock breaking through the fire in his eyes. "How?" I knelt in front of him, reaching out slowly, giving him every chance to pull away. He didn't. When my hand touched his cheek, the flames softened. Not extinguished, but tamed, drawn inward like a breath being held. His entire body shuddered. "You," he whispered, voice breaking. "You calmed the fire." I cupped his face gently, my thumb brushing the edge of a flame that curled around his jaw like a living ribbon. "I'm here," I said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Dimmed further, settling into a soft golden glow that wrapped around us like a cocoon. Kale leaned into my touch, his breath warm against my palm. "I thought I'd lose myself," he whispered. "I thought I'd lose you." "You won't," I said. "Not while I'm here." The flames flickered once more, then softened completely, settling into a gentle warmth that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. And in that moment, surrounded by light, wrapped in heat, holding him as the fire finally calmed, I knew the truth. He wasn't dangerous to me. He never had been. His fire recognized me. And I recognized him. Whatever came next, we would face it together. For a long moment after the fire calmed, neither of us moved. The clearing was quiet, lit only by the soft golden glow still radiating from Kale's skin. The air around us shimmered gently, warm but no longer wild, no longer dangerous. I could feel his breath against my palm, steadying, slowing, settling into something human again. He leaned into my touch like someone starved for warmth. Ironic, given the fire that lived inside him, and closed his eyes. "I don't understand," he whispered. "You should have burned." "I didn't," I said softly. "I never do." His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dim light. You walked into the flare. No one has ever done that. No one has ever survived it. I brushed my thumb along his cheek, feeling the last flickers of heat beneath his skin. Maybe your fire knows me. He inhaled sharply, the sound catching in his throat. It does, that's the problem. I shook my head. No, that's the answer. He looked away, his jaw tightening. I've spent my whole life trying to protect people from this part of me. From the fire, from the cycles, from the danger. And how has that worked out for you? I asked gently. A soft, humorless laugh escaped him. I've been alone for a very long time. The words hit me like a quiet ache. I shifted closer, my knees brushing his. You don't have to be alone anymore. He looked at me then, really looked, and the vulnerability in his eyes made my chest tighten. The fire inside him wasn't raging now. It was soft, steady, warm, a flame learning how to be gentle. I want to stay, he whispered, more than anything. But choosing you means choosing a different life, a mortal life, a life without rebirth. My breath caught. You'd lose your immortality? He nodded slowly. If I anchor myself to someone, if I choose them fully, the cycle ends. The fire becomes permanent. Human. It's a one-way path. And you're afraid, I said softly. He didn't deny it. I've never had anything to stay for. I reached for his hand, threading my fingers through his. His warmth wrapped around me instantly, soft and steady. You have something now, I whispered. You have me. His breath trembled, his eyes closing as if the words physically struck him. I don't want to lose you. You won't. You don't know that. I know what I feel, I said, my voice steady. And I know what I saw today. You didn't lose control because of me. You found it because of me. He opened his eyes, and the glow behind them softened into something warm and achingly tender. You calmed the fire, he whispered. No one has ever done that. Then maybe, I said, you're not meant to do this alone. The clearing fell quiet again, the warmth settling around us like a soft blanket. Cale lifted his free hand and placed it gently over mine, his touch warm enough to make my pulse flutter. If I choose this, he said, if I choose you, there's no going back. I don't want you to go back, I whispered. I want you here. His breath hitched. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. The warmth of him wrapped around me, gentle and steady, like a flame settling into a hearth. I choose you, he murmured. I choose this. I choose us. My heart swelled, a soft, overwhelming warmth blooming in my chest. I closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over me. The heat, the quiet, the certainty. When he kissed me, it wasn't fiery or wild. It was soft, warm, steady, a promise made in heat and light. The flames inside him dimmed to a gentle glow, settling into something human, something mortal, something ours. And for the first time since the blossoms appeared, I felt the warmth inside me answer back, not just reacting to him, but reaching for him, choosing him too. The days after Cale chose me felt different in a way I couldn't quite put into words. The world seemed warmer, softer, as if the air itself carried a quiet glow. Even the shop felt changed. Not in any obvious way, but in the subtle warmth that lingered in the corners, the gentle hum of magic that brushed against my skin whenever I walked past the workbench. The blossoms still appeared each morning, but they weren't frantic or unstable anymore. Their glow was steady, calm, almost content. They pulsed in soft golden waves like tiny hearts beating in time with something larger. With him. With us. One evening, just after closing, Cale and I stood behind the shop, in the small patch of land I'd always meant to turn into a garden, but never quite found the time for. The sun had dipped low, painting the sky in shades of peach and lavender. The air was cool, but Cale's presence warmed the space around us, a gentle heat that settled into my bones. He knelt in the soft soil, his fingers glowing faintly as he touched the earth. It's ready, he said quietly. I knelt beside him, brushing a stray curl behind my ear. For what? He smiled. a soft, warm curve of his lips that made my chest flutter. For them. He opened his hand. A blossom rested in his palm. Not one of the ones that had appeared in my shop, but something new. Its petals glowed with a soft, golden light, the edges flickering gently like candle flames. It felt alive in a way that made my breath catch. "This one is different," I whispered. "It's the first one I've made since choosing you," he said. "The first one that isn't tied to fear or longing, just warmth." He placed it gently into the soil, and the moment it touched the earth, the glow spread outward in a soft ripple. The ground warmed beneath my knees, and tiny sparks drifted upward like fireflies. I watched, mesmerized, as the blossom rooted itself, its petals opening wider, brighter, as if greeting the night. "It's beautiful," I murmured. Cale's hand brushed mine, warm and steady. "So are you." Heat rose to my cheeks, but I didn't look away. Instead, I leaned into him, resting my shoulder against his. His warmth wrapped around me instantly, familiar and comforting. We planted the other blossoms together, the ones that had appeared in my shop, each one glowing softly as Cale guided them into the soil. As we worked, the garden began to transform. Soft golden light spread across the ground, weaving between the flowers like threads of sunlight. The air shimmered gently, warm and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of smoke and honey. When we finished, we sat back on our heels, breathless and quiet. The Phoenix Garden glowed in the twilight, a small sanctuary of warmth and light, each blossom pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The glow reflected in Cale's eyes, turning them into molten gold. "It's beautiful," I whispered again, unable to stop myself. He turned to me, his expression softening. "It's ours." The words settled over me like a warm blanket. I leaned into him fully then, letting my head rest against his shoulder. His arm wrapped around me, pulling me close, his warmth sinking into my skin in a way that felt like home. For a long moment we just sat there, watching the blossoms glow in the gathering dark. The world felt quiet, peaceful, suspended in a soft golden stillness. Cale pressed a gentle kiss to the top of my head. "Thank you," he murmured. "For what?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "For walking into the fire," he said. "For seeing me. For choosing me." I smiled, closing my eyes as his warmth wrapped around me. "You chose me first." He laughed softly. A warm, low sound that vibrated through my chest. "Maybe. But you made it real." The garden pulsed gently, the blossoms glowing brighter for a moment before settling into a soft, steady light. I took his hand, threading my fingers through his. "We'll take care of it together." "Together," he echoed, squeezing my hand. The last light of day faded, and the Phoenix Garden glowed brighter, casting warm golden light across the night. And as I sat there with Cale beside me, wrapped in his warmth, surrounded by the magic we'd created together, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: this was our beginning.